Hi, good afternoon. This is Dr. Cliff Robertson with the Warriors Refuge, and this is the second part of our series today for Giving Tuesday, and we're proud to bring online with us this time Josh Baker from Vow 22. Good afternoon, Josh. How you doing today?
Pretty good, Cliff. How are you?
Good, good. Glad to have you with us. I got a chance in the last segment to kind of tell everybody who we are and what we do. Could you tell whoever's listening, whether it's four or five or however many or 500, tell us a little bit about Vow 22 if you can.
Yeah, so our mission is to prevent veteran suicide through community awareness, camaraderie, interaction, and in communication with veterans. So we got our start as our president started a hike and just wanted veterans to get together, and it's grown from nothing about just veterans getting together to walk, and to veterans focused on ending the suicide epidemic. So
Yeah, how many people were at your last hike?
I don't know the number offhand. I know we had a count going and I forgot it. I should have known. But I think it's around 750 is what we had on the actual hike. So yeah, so we on top of the hike, that's how we really got our start. But we do multiple different events throughout the year. We have a veteran fishing trip. We have meet and greets, but we're also able to get veterans into counseling. And so on top of at these events, veterans are getting together and identifying issues that are happening in these veterans' lives, and we're able to talk to them about it more bluntly, and to say what really needs to be said. And so with that, then these veterans are realizing that they have issues and that there's help out there. And so we get them and we facilitate. Hey, we have partnerships with counselors, and we're able to get veterans into counseling service whenever they need it.
Well, and one of the things that to me is such a big deal is when you just ponder that during the course of this live stream, one veteran is no longer going to be with us, and
Right.
That's heartbreaking. That's we've got to do something, and we've got to stand up and make a difference. And I love what you guys do. I know that as from a counselor perspective, I know that having that social interaction is really important, and not just any social interaction, but with other people who understand what they're going through and can relate at least at some level. I mean, if maybe they weren't exactly all in the same place, but they can speak the same language. I mean, Josh, as well as I do, as I'm a veteran. You're a veteran, and there's a whole different language.
Right.
I mean, acronyms and sayings and all that the rest of the world doesn't necessarily understand.
Yeah, and that's just a lot of us have gone through that, so we're like-minded people, and of course we're gonna click and get back to those kind of I guess where you're feeling comfortable again, and so therefore you're breaking down barriers, and that's what's important here.
Well, and one of the things that where we share a common mission between the Warriors Refuge and Vow 22 is making a difference in the lives of veterans. Ours is shelter, getting them back on their feet, getting them back getting them back to work, getting them in counseling as well. And what I'd like to do is kind of talk to you about the whole idea of the invisible scars, the thing that happens. I met a guy, I guess you'd say, it's been almost 10 years ago now, and he was part of, yeah, he's a Marine, Force Recon, has diagnosed full on PTSD. He's been he did, I don't know how many tours in Iraq, saw a lot of things. Um, how does that impact you? I mean, what's the talk to me about that a minute.
So, I mean, as far as that goes, and within our group, we have uh, so many veterans that have experienced um, different aspects of transitioning and different aspects of dealing with the issues as far as PTSD, depression, anxiety, and so you have so many different viewpoints of it, and so you know, a lot of us have that experience. If we don't have it personally, then maybe somebody else in our group does, and they're able to talk to that person and develop a tighter bond with them. And so um, I think a lot of us are open about um, the issues that we face with and that we're faced with, um, and so we know a lot about each other, and so we're able to rely on each other to kind of to reach out and help other people.
Sure, sure, and being able to reach out and reach out and help is, is so important because um, this topic that you and I talked about yesterday, getting ready for today, is that almost 70% of veterans who suffer from PTSD don't know that there are answers, are therapeutic models and things that can help them walk through that. When you've talked to veterans, what's been your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, on top of um, not necessarily knowing about it, but there's uh, a lot of them have different ways of wanting to approach these issues. Um, and so I think there's people that have experience. Um, I guess that they get their treatment by doing different things, whether it's being outdoors or doing different things, and that's how they get their therapy. And so I think that sorry, I don't know where I was going with this actually.
Okay,
Um, but yeah, I, um, there's what was the question again? I'm sorry.
that's okay. That's
I
okay.
started rambling
Um,
there.
no, no, no. I get it. The no veterans not knowing that there's an answer for
Mhm.
PTSD.
Right.
Uh,
No, so yeah, and so with that though, I think that we have veterans that know a lot of the different resources, and so there's we're able to say, hey, if you're dealing with this, we can connect you with this resource. Maybe we can't provide you with everything that you need, but we know a lot. We have a good network of other organizations. We're I think the veteran community is really good about uh, rebuilding that network that we once had.
mhm.
And so and so with that, uh, there's a huge instead of competing to in the space of rehabilitation, it's a lot more of working together and trying to accomplish the same goal and the same mission.
Yeah, collaboration is far more important than competition. If we find ourselves in competition, then there's a problem.
Agreed.
Then there's a problem. I mean, we find ourselves in competition, then one of us has just become unnecessary. Um, and there's plenty of other things to do to to not be in competition. The um, One of the things that as I've studied PTSD and how it relates to um, uh, and how that oftentimes ends up leading toward suicide is Oftentimes there's a substance abuse issue that kicks in because people will be using um, alcohol or drugs to help stop the repetitive
Numb the
storytelling in their head.
pain, right? And
And
that's the biggest thing is just trying to that I've noticed is just trying to numb and suppress. And so yeah, I totally agree with you on that. That's uh, one of the key reasons they look for that. And so um, but I think that if we get together and we talk about it instead of suppressing that, that's where we really see the true healing.
yeah, because the more we talk about it, and things like this, I believe, are important. To begin to talk about these things because the truth is, as a member of the military, we don't discuss our weaknesses. We don't, we could be injured and we don't say anything. We just suck it up, and because that's our default. That's what we're, if you're going to be tough, that's what you do. So when you've got a challenge like this, your default is still the same. Um, so we have to talk about it, and when we do, it takes us from hopeless to hopeful.
Mhm.
Uh, that's one of the things that I see. Um, one of the one of the other links to all this, though, is um, PTSD is not only a link in and of itself to suicide, but when you add drugs or alcohol to that combination, it, according to the studies that have been done, it makes the likelihood of suicide even greater.
And I totally agree with that. I think there's well, our organization thinks that there could be a number of contributing factors to the suicide. That if you're having marital issues, we'll get you help for that. We think that if your kids are having issues, we're gonna get you help for that because it's all it all relies upon another. And so if we fix these issues, maybe little by little, that you're fixing the bigger issue. And and um and so I think there's whether it's financial, marital, kids, there could be a lot of contributing factors. And so we have to be um I think we have to just be aware of that. And that if we look at that and identify that maybe that um we can kind of solve more issues if we are more cognizant of um, more stressors, I guess.
Right, because all those things can have a direct impact, um, and do. I mean the numbers don't lie. Um, and veterans, again, statistically, are far more likely to be homeless as well as you know victims of suicide than the general population. Um, we want to, if there's a problem, we want to fix it. And sometimes we think fixing it is by ending it. And that's never the solution, is it?
Right. And that's our biggest hope that we get out there is that um, if we affect one life and save one life, it's all worth it. Um,
Sure.
and 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 so there's I think a lot of it's just being there. Sometimes you just got to sit there and talk on the phone. And that's one thing that even me personally I've tried to work on more is just, hey, reaching out to people and calling and being that phone call. And I've even had to hold myself accountable. Hey, did you call this person today? Did you call this? Um, there's sometimes that I let life kind of get ahead of it,
Sure. We all
and
do.
and that's so we need to I think as a community we need to bond together and really 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 check on one another.
Well, and I think that by doing that, we will, we'll be able to move beyond some of these challenges and then become the success story that ends up helping somebody else.
Right.
Um, I mean, that's that's part of the end goal is to not just be okay, but then to now be able to turn around and help the guy behind you, your buddy behind you, up out of his pit. Um, I've got I've got a statistic that to me is even more staggering than 22 a day. It's 8,000 um, men and women a year are ending their lives as veterans through suicide, and that's um, I mean that just hurts to think about. I was aboard the USS George Washington in the Persian Gulf and and in the Mediterranean, and we had a guy on while we were deployed going to the as part of the first Gulf War, and he couldn't take it anymore, and jumped overboard in the middle of the night, and
Hmm.
you know you jump overboard along the side of an aircraft carrier, we're not finding you because you get sucked underneath and all that, and um, and it was a case of he he'd written letters home saying that he was struggling and didn't want to do this or that, but no one no one that knew him ever knew there was a problem.
Hmm.
He never said anything.
Hmm.
Um, you got any war
So,
stories?
and and that's another thing is I think kind of what we've been on is um, if we're all about our stories and to one another, that our hope is that other people will open up about theirs, and they're less afraid to come to you. And I've had I've had so many people contact me and just if I'm an open book, and so um, there's been plenty of times to just sit there and talk to somebody, and and that ends up you know being a lifesaver for them, and that's that's the thing that's impacted me through this. It's just uh is by being open, I'm being there for somebody else.
Right, being willing to be vulnerable and share your story
Right.
is important. One of the things that's interesting about uh, counseling theory for a moment. Um, and I don't want to bore anybody with counseling theory, but but it ties into what you just said. Is one of the it's part of a cognitive behavioral therapy type where they have the veteran basically write down his story, write down his trauma,
Hmm.
and then read it at the next one-on-one counseling session,
Hmm.
and during it the counselor asks questions and gets him to kind of expand and explore, and then the next time he his homework when he gets sent home is to write it again and add all that deeper meaning, because so many times when we're replaying these stories, one, we don't really want to go back to the details, which can be difficult, and two, we don't really want to share our own pain as part of it.
Hmm.
uh, you know I mean, there's times I've got another case study here in front of me with a guy named Alan. He was an army um, command driver in Iraq. Um, and they had the IED sniffing vehicles and sensors and X-rays and all that. And he said one of his most graphic memories, and it took a while for him to even talk about it. But when he first got home from Iraq, he went into his bedroom at his parents' house. And this was a grown man, and but he didn't want to be alone, for one, because he was afraid of what he might do. He didn't say that at the time, but he said it
Mhm.
later. But he didn't know what he might do, and he went into his room at home and stayed there for 2 weeks, only coming out to grab some food and go back.
Mhm.
And when I finally got him to talk some, he began to talk about um, things blowing up, and then um, parts of vehicles raining down that got blown up, and then that began to open up and talk even more. Um, and it was really 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 difficult for him to get to a point where he could share. Heck, it was difficult for him to figure a way to get out of the bedroom. Um, but at least he made a smart move and be around somebody. But so many times veterans will isolate completely away from anybody else. Um,
Yeah.
what has been your experience with that?
That's yeah. I think that's my main message, and my main message today is don't isolate. Even um, as a world, we're preaching isolation right now. Um, but
Right.
but
What do you do?
it's but it is very important. That's our anytime we go to an event, we say, hey, exchange a phone number, and so you're able to. I mean, then that's our biggest thing is meeting up and getting a connection with somebody. If it's just one person from an event that you're connecting with. One of the bigger events, I mean, one of the pretty much all events I go to is that's a big message is to just reach out and meet somebody. And um and I think if we as a veteran community, if we all kind of get together and get active in these organizations, whether it's community service, whether it's um, helping out um, with different things. It's just I think just getting involved is an important thing.
No, I agree, and I'm gonna get back to psychology for a moment, which is kind of my wheelhouse. Um, there's this theory called positive psychology. It's really pretty simple, because see, psychology and counseling, all that was developed initially to help people get from a place that was really bad to some place that's really not quite so bad. But positive psychology is meant to take it to the next step, next level, to go from not so bad to actually a sense of well-being, a sense of happiness. And some of the things you just mentioned tie right into that, in that doing things for others,
Hmm.
uh, doing something for somebody who cannot repay you, uh, making a difference in their lives. I remember at a time in my own life when I was battling depression, and I was fighting those demons back. And I had a good friend of mine say, "Get out of the house, stop isolating." And what she told me to do, and you're going to find this funny. She told me to go to Walmart and buy three fall plants, and stand outside and give them away to people that you think might 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 like them. And I thought she was crazy.
Hmm.
I thought she was absolutely stark raving mad. But I was struggling. I was at a real bad place. So I went ahead and did it. I just said, okay, I'm going to feel stupid. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to do it. And I have to tell you that by the time I gave away the third plant, I had forgotten all about the depression. I had forgotten all about all the other stuff, and I was having a conversation with this person I had never even met before, and it made them feel a ton better. And I was bouncing like Tigger,
Mhm.
uh, but getting out and doing things like that. I know the hike is also a form of exercise,
Yes.
getting together
And
and all
that's
that.
and even so, I mean, that's something personally that I've gotten into jujitsu,
Okay.
and so it has a large kind of veteran presence, and so I get that connection with guys where we're doing something active, and so that's been something positive for me that so even something that's not inherently in the veteran community, it's making connections with veterans. There's at least 4 or 5 that I could think of from that I've grown friendships out of, and so um, I totally agree that it's just getting out there doing something and making those connections, and I think that's something that we definitely push for.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and bring this part of the segment to an end with you. I get the sense you might need to go.
Yeah.
Uh, so we're going to continue on with some other stuff here, but I just want to say thank you, Josh, for being a part of it. I look forward, after we get past this last stages of this part of the pandemic anyway, being able to get back together and let's go do something together, and maybe put on a joint event or something. Just do something where we can um, make a difference. And I'd also like to invite you guys to be. We're going to try to do something like this. We're going to do this once a week, but I'd love to have you guys be a part of it, maybe once a month or something, and just
Yeah.
let's collaborate more.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you having me, and then thanks for what you're doing for our local community. I think everybody's doing a great job, and we're all working for that same mission. So thanks for having me, and I'll
No
get back with
problem.
you soon.
No problem. One last thing, just get ready to start working pretty hard. I understand from conversations with the VA that the gates are getting ready to open again, so we're getting ready to get busy. So
Yeah, that's we have been talking about that as well. So so
so
yeah, thank you, but thanks for
all
having
right,
us.
sir.
So,
All right, thank
alrighty.
you. And for those of you that are interested, go check out the website vow22.org. They're a great organization. They do great work, and I couldn't recommend them more highly. Take care, Josh.
Thank you.
All right, for those of you that are sticking with me, I want to talk to you about a couple of things. Um, um, I see Josh is still there. But I want to talk to you about a couple of case studies that um, I've run across, and I've worked through with people. And I wrote about this one the other day and it should be on our blog on the website. And that website is thewarriorsrefuge.us. And I want to encourage you to go there. I also want to remind you that this is part of a Giving Tuesday thing we're doing, and there's um, there was a live stream we did at 9, which is kind of introducing who the Warriors Refuge, who we are, and and what we do. And this is about mental health and PTSD, and that's why we had and suicide, and that's why we had Josh Baker with Vow 22 on. Um, the next segment at 3 is going to be an introduction to the staff of the Warriors Refuge, and maybe some views of inside what it looks like. Um, Hopefully it'll be a little fun. And the final one is going to be a wrap up. If you have questions, I'd encourage you as part of this to put them on there, and we will be answering those questions in the final segment at 5. But I want to talk to you about just a couple of examples of um, some of the people that we serve. I talked about a couple of them earlier. Guy named Joe that was part of he's a Marine, Force Recon, and haven't had a chance to talk with him. He suffers from PTSD, prolonged exposure PTSD. Did 4 or 5 tours to Iraq, um, and he saw some things, experienced some things, was a part of things that he still struggles to talk about. And what happens when somebody is struggling with PTSD that's post-traumatic stress disorder, is a lot of times they can't stop the replaying of those images and those thoughts in their head. It's like there's this DVD in their brain that won't shut it off. It just won't stop. And that can bring a sense of anxiety. That can bring a sense of depression. In some cases, it can bring a sense of shame. Maybe there was something that they thought they should have done or could have done or would have done, and they didn't. They lost a buddy, lost several friends, or they saw things that in war is really hard. And he had actually tried to kill himself a couple of different times. And I actually met him at a veterans homeless shelter, and he was struggling. He was struggling. He had actually been to three. He'd been kind of what they call he'd become what's called a program bouncer, meaning he would go from program to program to program, just trying to survive, just trying to make it. And but the problem was that while there was shelter, a place for him to stay, there wasn't any supportive services to go with it. In other words, there wasn't anything that was going to sit down and say, okay, what do we need to do to help you get to where you need to be to really rejoin society? And so what we did is we began talking to him and began saying, okay, what are some of your job qualifications? What are some of the things you've done that might translate and all that? And before you knew it, he was talking about how he loved working on big diesel engines, how he loved to tune and to make that work. And I asked about any qualifications, any certifications. He goes, no, I just grew up doing it. So we were able to actually get him plugged into a program that was able to put him through a few courses and then test him. And before you know it, he had certifications and he was able to go back to work. But there was more to it than just that. He also had to get involved in counseling. I know that Josh talked about, if you need counseling for your family, you need this or that, whatever it is. And that was what a lot of the programs had missed. And that's one of the keys to the Warriors Refuge is that, if somebody comes in, they not only get a place to stay, they get that vocational counseling where they do an assessment, see what you're best suited for. And then they began to walk through, what does it look like? We talked about substance abuse, began some substance abuse counseling. Maybe there's the PTSD and begin some PTSD counseling, because there really are answers out there. There really are therapeutic models that have shown to be successful. And there's more than one. I mentioned earlier the cognitive behavioral therapy model, and I could use all the big names that you'd want, but the bottom line is there's an answer. It's not a one size fits all answer, but there's an answer. And there's an answer for you if this is what you struggle with. There was the guy named Alan that I referred to a minute ago. Just so you know, he didn't get to the point of becoming homeless. He chose not to socially isolate, but he did get counseling, and he did get better. The other one that I wrote about in the blog is a guy named Roberto. He's a Vietnam War vet. He got both legs injured to the point where they're no longer of any use, and he struggles with everything. He struggles to survive. He's on a minimal Social Security disability, and nobody really reaches out to help him. He's never been diagnosed. He had never been diagnosed with anything. He drinks excessively. And again, by the way, all the names are changed, and some of the details are actually mitigated. I don't tell the full story of anybody. But Roberto is an example of there's probably thousands of Robertos out there that are suffering silently. Um, um, Suffering silently, not getting the help that he needs. What he does in order to mask the pain is he drinks. He drinks a lot. In fact, Roberto, it says Roberto drinks to the point of going to jail often, and never quite gets the help that he needs. Oftentimes, this is the person that winds up homeless. This is the person that needs help. And maybe you know that person. Maybe you know a Roberto that is struggling. Maybe you know somebody who doesn't want to talk about the past, doesn't want to go there, and but also doesn't have the things that he or she needs. And what I want to challenge you to do is, like Josh was saying a minute ago, reach out to him, talk to him. And you may not have the answers, but I'm going to tell you, you don't necessarily need the answers. Maybe you can lead them to a place that has the answers, or that can help them discover the answers. The bottom line is being there for each other. The bottom line is being a source of hope. And that's one of the things that we strive to do at the Warriors Refuge, is be that place where life can begin again. Sometimes life can get so out of hand, so horrible that you don't even know what to do anymore. And as a soldier, you're trained to fix the situation. And you may think that the only answer is to is to end it. And I will tell you that is never the answer. That's never the answer. There is always an answer. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And it's really not even an answer, because you leave behind a trail of misery that you can't even begin to imagine. And oftentimes one act of suicide leads to others doing the same thing, because they think it's their answer too. So while you may think it's just about you, it's not. And I realize you may think that by ending it that way, you're actually preventing other people from being harmed by your actions. And the truth is, you've just put on them an even greater harm. The best thing you could do is to seek help, is to get the kind of help you need. And maybe it's at a place like the refuge that is a shelter. Maybe it's in counseling, whatever it is. And maybe you don't know what the answer to that is. I'm going to tell you, talk to us, give us a call, or you can reach us through our website at www.thewarriorsrefuge.us. Our phone numbers are on there. Our email addresses are on there. You're going to meet some of the people later. Maybe you don't want to talk to us. Maybe you're thinking, I don't want to call a shelter. Well, reach out to Val 22. There are other solutions. Whoever it is, it doesn't matter who it is. What I want you to realize is that there is hope. There is an answer, and the answers are real, and people are really, really getting help. They really are. I want to tell you about another person. There's been a lot of talk about men, and up to now, men have been the ones in the veteran community that have suffered most, and that's because it's been mostly men going into combat. But that's changed. It's no longer that way. In fact, I've met women who have and are working through prolonged exposure PTSD themselves. And by the way, counseling is part of what we offer as well for these things. So they're experiencing that as well. And we could, in the future, we're going to talk more about PTSD and what it is and what it isn't, and how it affects other parts of your life. But there's something that is always a tough topic for everybody to talk about, especially men, and that is PTSD that comes from sexual trauma. have a case study here in front of me with a lady named Fran, and here's a part of her story. Um, she writes that she was excited about joining the military. She could not wait to get the career started because her family had been so dysfunctional all her life. But she joined the Army right out of high school when she turned 18. After she had finished basic training and gone to advanced infantry training, just past her 18th birthday, she was raped by a male sergeant. It was an incredibly difficult time, she writes. She says, I was married at the time, and my husband was a month ahead of me in training, and I didn't know quite what to do. I was encouraged to be silent. She said, we both came from abusive homes and saw joining the Army as our only way out. We were the only ones in our families to ever graduate from high school. She said, we knew we could do better, and we wanted to do better. Fran said that she had 2 outstanding drill sergeants. They took me from being a civilian to a soldier. They never mistreated us. They never bullied us or were cruel to us. They were there to help. No one likes or enjoys basic training, but these 2 gentlemen showed us what honor, courage, strength, and loyalty are all about. She goes, I loved the military. Then as she moved on to advanced infantry training, she hadn't even been there a week when everything began to change. She said that they were standing in formation to receive their gear, and her platoon sergeant had gone to the building when she was called out of formation by another male sergeant. She goes, I was rather shaken when he asked me where I was from. I told him Texas. He said he loved my accent. Not appropriate. Anyway, David said her platoon sergeant returned from the building and yelled at her to get back in line. I did and never gave it a second thought until 4 days later. She was called into the sergeant's office and told to return the next day for extra duty in her PT gear. When she reported, she was pulled into his office and raped. This was the first part of her training, and it went on the entire time, and she was told to remain silent, and otherwise she would be ruined. Her husband's career would be ruined, and the sergeant would make sure that they were never together at any duty station. Well, all those were lies. But she kept quiet. She kept quiet until she couldn't keep quiet anymore. She kept quiet. By keeping quiet, it drove her to alcohol. It drove her to living a life that she never imagined. It drove her to all sorts of things. And it finally drove her to leaving the military and getting into a drug rehabilitation program. And it was pretty bad. But she was diagnosed finally after years of being silent. When she finally told her story, she was diagnosed as having PTSD. She had lost her husband in an automobile accident several years prior to that. And when she finally received help, or she received the diagnosis, she didn't know what to do with it. She didn't know what to do. It actually caused her, initially a greater sense of depression, thinking that she was helpless because she knew she'd heard the stories about all these folks that suffer from PTSD and ended up killing themselves. And she just figured that would be the same for her. And she gave her kids to her parents one night and had committed to herself that she was going to go disappear in the woods and never be found again. She was planning on ending her life. Before she got there, she had a conversation with another veteran at a diner, and he asked her, he asked her where she was going. She goes, "I don't know. I don't really have a place anymore." And he said, "Well, I know a place," and introduced her to a case manager and a counselor at a shelter. And before you knew it, she was back on her feet, back with her kids, and back in a productive life. You see, there are success stories. They don't all end in tragedy. And what our goal here is to have more and more success stories, more and more answers, more and more people saying, this works. Because I want to tell you it does. I want to tell you, if you're out there suffering, if this is you, you're saying, wow, this is a long session and we're just about to end. But if this is you, you don't have to suffer. You don't have to stay where you are. Maybe this isn't you. Maybe you're saying, okay, I want to do something that helps. Well, there's a lot of different ways to help. There are opportunities to volunteer and just be somebody that just be there to talk with somebody who's there, maybe at the refuge or through other veteran organizations. Or maybe you don't have the time. Maybe you can't volunteer. Today is Giving Tuesday, and we would be honored by donation in any amount. We would absolutely be honored. So look at the website, look at the link on this stream. There's ways to do that. You give a recurring donation of $25 a month, and we're going to send you a hat. $50 a month or more, we'll send you a hat, a t-shirt. But at the end of the day, we need you to join the fight with us. I've got the hashtag out there, hashtag join the fight. Our goal is to end veterans homelessness. And we want to work to begin to end it through ending suicide, ending the battles people face by giving them a place to begin again. And also by reaching out beyond just those who need shelter. So if you need counseling, you need help with case management. In other words, getting back on your feet with a job. You need help with your family. You need help in these areas. Then we want to be there for that too. In fact, later this summer, we're going to be starting some other programs that include helping veterans start a business, helping veterans get, who are disabled, get long-term good housing, all sorts of things that we have in the works. And I just want you to know that wherever you are, there's help. And if you just need somebody to talk to, give us a call. Give us a call. We'll talk to you. If you need some help beyond that, we're there for that too. If we don't have the answer, we know people who do, but there's help. I want to thank you for being a part of this today. I hope you got something from it. The last thing is I just want you to know you're not alone. You're not alone. There's always help. But I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you soon. Have a great